Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this meeting of the full council. During the meeting today, I will be making rulings on process and conduct during the meeting and would ask council to abide by the standing orders and rules of debate. At certain times, I may seek guidance from my advisors, and should we need to adjourn, I will inform council of what is happening at the time and a time for us to reconvene. We all enjoy robust, respectful debate. If members' speeches run over the time allocated, I will allow you to finish your sentence, but ask that you finish as quickly as possible. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind members that there is no local government equivalent of parliamentary privilege. Members will therefore be liable for any defamatory statements they make. If you wish to speak during the meeting, I would ask that you raise your hand and wait for me to invite you to speak. Please raise any points of order verbally. I will then pause the meeting to deal with a point of order. When raising a point of order, please state the procedure, rule, or law you believe has been breached. All votes will be conducted via the electronic voting system today. If we receive any amendments to the recommendations before council today, I will adjourn to ensure that the members have adequate time to read the amendment. Thank you. Right, I move to item number 1, apologies.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We've apologies from Councillor Bingley, Smith, Stoneman, Cree, Holloway, and Councillor Darcy, who believes are working in court today. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Can I ask for any further apologies? Nope. No. Thank you. Moving on to item number 2 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meeting. I propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of January 2024 be signed as a correct record. Deputy Lord Mayor, will you second my proposal?
Seconded, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I need to say there needs to be some amendments to them. If you look at the voting on page 4, we have Councillor Patel for, but we also have him abstaining. And there's no record of the Lord Mayor not voting or whatever. And there's also another one where Councillor Mahoney it did not vote, and yet he's down as for. So I just think if we could have them altered and then accept it from there, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aspinall. We'll make amendment to the record, and thank you very much for astutely picking up those issues. Thank you very much. So, accepting that there are amendments to make, are there any further amendments? So, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. Yeah, there is one section in there that says that I did not vote. I know that I left when the taxi licence was discussed, but other than that, I believe that I voted on every matter. So if that could be looked at, please. Thank you.
Members, right, we will review the voting record on there and any other amendments, and we will bring the minutes forward at another meeting. Thank you very much. Right. Moving on to item agenda number 3, declarations of interest. Members will be aware that there is a general dispensation in relation to this budget meeting, and the reminder has been circulated this morning. Can members make it known by raising their hands, please, if they have any private or disclosable pecuniary interests in any of the matters today on the agenda? And my advisor will take a record of interest declared. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have a private interest in item number 6 on the agenda, in as much as I'm employed by Devon and Cornwall Police, who may well be mentioned.
Councillor Sproston.
My Lord Mayor, I would like to declare a private interest. My employment with National Neighbourhood Watch is connected financially to Devon and Cornwall OPCC, which will be discussed during this meeting.
Any more members? Okay, thank you, members. I would like at this point to invite members to put forward any motion concerning the suspension of standing orders in relation to the limit of length of time of speeches. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Forgive me if I remain seated. I wish to move that Council suspends 4.2 of the rules of debate in relation to item 6, revenue and capital budget, to remove restrictions on the speech time for the leader of the council and the leader of the largest opposition group. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I'm seconding it, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rennie. Right, we're now Councillor Nicholson.
Well, Mayor, can I speak on the proposition? Obviously, last year, members who are not part of the majority party or the opposition party were shut down. Do we have any indication from the leader of the council and the leader of the Conservative group whether other members of the council have an opportunity to speak on the budget this year?
I mean, at this point, that's not a question actually you can pose. You can, but it's inadmissible within the meeting today. So we've had a proposal put forward. Yeah, this is following the rules of debate, and the debate is, or the vote will be on suspending the orders for the leader and the leader of the largest opposition party to speak. Thank you. Right, members, let's go to the vote. Right, members. Thank you very much, members. That vote has been carried 48-4. No abstentions and no againsts. Thank you very much. Right, we now move on to item number 4, which are announcements. This is the Lord Mayor's announcement. I have one announcement today. In February, officers from across the council came together to help support the people from Keyham, where a World War II bomb was discovered in a garden. Throughout the incident, the council was responsible for supporting the evacuation of 10,000 people across the week, setting up and staffing a rest centre, serving 1,000 people over the course of 3 days, supporting our military in preparing for the cooperation, including implementation of dozens of road closures, sourcing and arranging for over 300 tonnes of sand to be available and dropped into the area, creating an online incident hub and 24/7 help line with regular updates, a postcode tracker so people could see if they were being evacuated, and utilising the government's alert system. The first time this system has ever been used in an emergency. Arranging temporary accommodation for 180 households who were evacuated and had nowhere to go. Supporting families in the area, ensuring that children were kept safe. working with 6 schools and nurseries within the cordon to ensure that they were able to evacuate safely. Our thanks go to the officers of the council who worked around the clock with our partners to ensure a good outcome, and our councillors who showed amazing community leadership despite being impacted by the cordon. I'm not sure members are aware, but we even had people from Dartmoor Rescue out there working hard 24 hours a day. I would like especially to thank our military personnel whose bravery was clearly shown as they spent time assessing the device and driving the device through our city. A level of risk it is hard for many to understand. Finally, our residents who stuck with us throughout the incident. This part of the city has a horrible and terrible events in the past, and I would like to thank all the people of Keam and beyond for their forbearance and assistance that they provided to each other. Thank you to all. Right, and now move on to item number 5. Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry, future financing and the 2024-2025 revenue budget and capital programme. Councillor Hendy, would you like to introduce the report? Where are we?
This report seeks recommendations from the Council to approve an application to the Secretary of State for a toll increase and Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry's Joint Committee's proposed revenue budget and capital programme for 2024 to 25, and to note the longer-term revenue forecast for 25 to 26. The background behind the report. The Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry are operated, maintained and improved jointly by Cornwall Council and Plymouth City Council on a user pays principle, being funded by toll income using powers derived from the Tamar Bridge Act. The finances of the joint undertaking are effectively ring-fenced by the Act, and it is operated as a self-financing business. The Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry Joint Committee terms of reference require the cabinets of the joint authorities to recommend the annual Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry budget and business plan to the respective full councils. The financial forecast supporting the 2022 to 23 toll increase had not predicted the war in Ukraine and its global repercussions, specifically related to fuel and energy price increases and cost inflation that at times exceeded 10%. Higher costs of energy, fuel and high inflation have eroded the financial envelope that had been planned before the 2022 to provide a balanced budget for what was hoped to be at least a 4 to 5 year period. In the meantime, there has been no evidence of the anticipated return to pre-COVID traffic levels, with traffic at both crossings running at approximately 90% of pre-COVID levels. As a result, the undertaking has found itself with an unidentified reserve shortfall, reserve shortfall in the 2025 to 2026 due to these circumstances. It should be noted that the Section 151 officers from both parent authorities have confirmed to the committee that there is no provision for financial support from the budgets of either parent authority, as other crucial services provided by the councils are already at financial pressure. This report seeks council's endorsements that an application be made to the Secretary of State for the toll increase as recommended in the report, previously at £2.60 but to £2.30 for cars and pro rata for other vehicles and the tag, previously £1.30 to £1.50 and again pro rata for other vehicles, which will address the forecast gaps in the undertaking's finances in the 25 to 26 and provide an improved level of resilience for subsequent years. Subject to the Council's endorsements of the proposed toll increase, then the report also seeks full Council approval that the proposed revenue budget and capital programme for 24 to 25 and associated annual business plan be approved and indicative figures for those subsequent 3 years, 25-26 and 26 to 27 and 27 to 28 be noted. The proposed budgets support the delivery of the Tamar Bridge Torpoint Ferry annual business plan, where the proposed revenue expenditure and capital works items are essential to preserve the integrity of the assets and to deliver the service sustainability into the future. Details of the budgets can be seen in the appendices of the report. And as a joint undertaking, a parallel report was presented to Cornwall's Council on the 26th of February 2024, highlighted in red in your report. Plymouth City Council's Cabinet therefore recommends to the Council, 1, that having considered the contents of the report, including the responses from the public consultation set out in Appendix 1 to the report, an application for a toll revision based on £3 cash and £1.50 tag be made 55 days hence to the Secretary of State in accordance with the applicable legislation. Where the application is successful, but prior to the toll revision being implemented by the government to provide funding to the Tamar Bridge, which can be used to offset this expenditure, then the proposed toll increase will either not be implemented or will be decreased in line with that funding. And number 2, approves the 2024-25 revenue budget and capital programme and the draft 24 to 25 business plan as set out in the appendices to the Torpoint Ferry and Tamar Bridge Joint Committee report on the 12th of January 24. And number 3, notes longer term forecast to the 2027 to 28. And the reasons behind this is without an approved budget agreed by the parent authorities, Plymouth City Council and Cornwall Council, the bridge and ferry operations would be unable to operate. An agreed approved budget is required of the existing governance arrangements of the parent authorities.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hendy. Councillor Coker, I understand that you're seconding this report. Would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wish to second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Through you, I'm sure most members here are aware of my stance on the Tamar Bridge and Torpoint Ferry tolls. This has not changed, especially given the cost of living crisis that we are faced with. We need to take a much stronger line with government to revisit the matter of the tolls that we are forcing onto the bridge users. I believe, and I'm convinced, that the toll increase, which is above inflation, is totally wrong, and I will not be supporting it. I believe our residents deserve better, and I urge all members to vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Evans.
We were treated, and have been treated, Lord Mayor, to a number of videos over the last few days by the Cornish MPs Johnny Mercer and Cheryl Murray, who I'm sure, as they have to come into Plymouth now and again for business, would welcome having a toll freeze. But they've launched a petition, Lord Mayor, and they've promised that the matter of the toll rises was in hand, that they'd had a word with the minister. So we were all scuttling and scurrying over Tuesday's budget for signs of life, signs that this lobbying by these two leviathans of local politics had actually had some impact. But it hasn't. They've failed to secure the ear of government, failed to secure the ear of the Chancellor, failed to secure their promised rises, and, like the Duke of York, have marched thousands of local people up the hill only to leave them there. And let's be clear what their failure actually means. If they continue to be making their election campaigns based on this freeze. What will happen if this money does not come through, and I have no reason to suspect now the budget's there that the money will come through, it will come as an impact on local taxpayers. Right? That's people like us in here and the 257,000 people that live outside, plus the people like Johnny Mercer and Cheryl Murray who live in Cornwall. That's who will be paying. I mean, let me just tell you what the impact of their failure will be to skew this money if they persist and are successful in bullying the committee and bullying these councils into holding the fees where they are. For the 25-26 PCC year, financial year, it means a rise. We have to find £808,000 in subsidy. For the year after that, 26-27, another £993,000. The year after that, another £1,052,000 that you and I and the people outside will have to pay. Meanwhile, tourists and business users will get a free ride. If you will, that's a reverse tourist tax. It's a tourist tax, not on tourists, but a tourist tax on local taxpayers. So that is the price of electioneering by these two Cornish MPs, by Johnny Mercer, who lives in Cornwall and not in his city, Plymouth, and Cheryl Murray, who lives in Cornwall. So I reluctantly have to support this because we can't have the bridge fail. We can't have the bridge not repaired. We can't have a situation where the finances of the bridge are put in jeopardy. But as I say, Johnny Mercer can go to one of his other houses. He doesn't have to cross the Tamar. But I have to say to you, this kind of cheap jack electioneering is symbolic of a pair of conservatives who really know the value of nothing. And I have to say now, we have to support this amendment that Cornwall proposed, and let's deliver a Tamar Bridge that lasts. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor, members of the Council. Well, I have a lot of sympathy with the sentiment and contribution from Councillor Evans in that actually the Tamar Bridge and Talbot Ferry is a vital link between the counties of Devon and Cornwall. And if it hadn't been for the wisdom of councillors in the past, we wouldn't have had the link that we've had for the last umpteen decades. And it is a pity that it's become a political football, having been a long-standing member previously of the Tamar Bridge and Talbot Ferry Joint Committee. The good work of that committee has been undermined by party politics. Councillor Evans has got a point that members of Parliament clearly are using it for political purposes. But I remember when I was a member of the Joint Committee that members of Parliament were actually going to look into Highways England, National Highways, to fund it. Clearly, representation being made by Conservative members of Parliament for the Conservative government to look at other ways of funding it. None of it has come about. And I wanted, through you, Lord Mayor, to give sort of an advance notice to Councillor Handy, what have members of Parliament been doing locally to sponsor private legislation where backbench members of Parliament, Mrs Murray could have, through you, Lord Mayor, been sponsoring a bill, using her time in Parliament to sponsor a bill to actually amend the current Tamar Bridge Act to ensure that instead of us going through a toll revision process, which itself is very expensive, we can have it linked with CPI. And given the fact that none of us in this chamber are being responsible for high inflation, but I would suggest it's been the government, the government should be helping resolve this issue through amending legislation that makes the joint undertaking far more easy to maintain and therefore sustain in the future. But there is a wider point, isn't it, that South West here again, this is one of the few links, major links in the road network that's funded through a local arrangement and not funded through the national government. And that can't be right. And I would say, through you, Lord Mayor, why aren't members of Parliament who are in office, their party's in power, why haven't they resolved this? and why they bring it to the fore as we again approach a general election. It isn't good enough. They have every opportunity. They have all the tools at their disposal. They've just chosen not to resolve it to the benefit of the local population. But what I would say in my final remarks, these increases do have an impact on local people. And I think it is responsible that members of the Joint Committee and councillors generally try to hold to account, obviously, increases in expenditure. And I do note in the capital programme 2 additional big-ticket items being added to this year's budget for the Joint Committee, and that's £3 million for ferry decarbonisation. Now, I would question whether that has to be dealt with in the next financial year and not spread over a number of financial years to, again, minimise the increase. And I don't know enough about the structural fire protection upgrade, which is proposed of 3.5 million for the bridge. So effectively, that's £6.5 million being financed in one financial year. If that could have not been spread over a number of financial years to, again, minimise the toll increase that's being proposed. But I hope that we can get a national resolution to this issue, and that the members of the Joint Committee who do their best on behalf of the Joint Councils don't get dealt with in the manner that they are in the current media. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eagleton. Are there any other members who would like to speak on this matter? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the paperwork that I have in front of me, I've seen that there has been extensive consultation carried out in regards of a Tamar Bridge toll. And there are those for it and those against it. But interestingly, I pulled out some interesting things, like Parish Council, Salters Town Council responded to this consultation. Cheviot Parish City Council also responded to this consultation. And then we have a MP, Luke Pollard, for Plymouth South and Devonport constituency, replying also to consultation. I find it really difficult to understand. Plymouth has another MP, Johnny Mercer. Where's his response to this consultation? Or MP Murray, where is her response to this consultation? If they truly care about the people of the Plymouth, they will do something about it. And I find it absolutely disgraceful they haven't done anything about it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors who would like to speak on this matter? Yeah. Councillor Coker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do find myself agreeing with the majority of sentiment that Councillor Nicholson has made. As being a member of the Torpoint and Tamar Bridge Committee for a number of years, and I'm sure Councillor Nicholson was with me at the time, when we were pressing MPs even before 2019 to engage in the process. I just want to put on record that this is just not, I know Councillor Patel mentioned just the bridge. This is a joint undertaking. It is a real vital link between the Devonport side and Torpoint, and actually they are interlinked, intertwined, and equally important. And I think that's a real point that we've got to make. I agree with Councillor Nicholson. We've been pressing for national highways to contribute to the strategic network that actually goes over the bridge. We've had an independent peer review of the committee to ascertain that the Torpoint and Tamar Bridge Committee with the management works in an appropriate way. We've made some changes to what we've done. We have to make sure that no one wants to increase the charges. But as Councillor Evans says, in the current Act, the only option we have is for both Cornwall and Plymouth councils to subsidise the shortfall. We desperately need to get CPI in. We desperately need to make sure that the future financing of this is appropriate. We have no choice today, unfortunately, but to vote this increase through. Should the amendment that Cornwall put through, with the promises of the local MPs that they were going to do something between now and the toll rise, then we have the ability to actually take the toll rise or reduce the toll rise. So we are waiting for them to deliver on their promises. We have very limited option in this council and in Cornwall to have any other options but to self-finance the bridge or dig into our own pockets. Now, we all know that we've got vital services in Plymouth for children, for adults, that are all really, really stretched because of the 14 years of the current government, Lord Mayor. And we have to make these choices. And unfortunately, this is a decision that none of us wanted to make, but in reality, under the current legislation, we have no option. So therefore, I would urge members to support this today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coker. Councillor Hendy, would you like to sum up?
As Councillor Coker said, it's with a heavy heart, really, that we've had to put these increases forward. But this is a business that should be paid by the toll users. If the government step in, we are waiting. It's not through lack of trying. We've had various meetings with the MPs over the years. A couple of months ago, we met with the two local Blue MPs. They were, to be honest, I thought they were pretty negative in their response. Had they not been, we wouldn't be in this position that we're actually in today. And we are where we are. And the figure says that we're down 90%, so we've got 90% of our traffic flow that we had pre-COVID. The 10% difference has made a big difference. And we need to maintain this asset. So what do? Do we reduce services? Do we let the assets fall apart, which we can't? So it must go to a toll crease until the government step in. There's no money from the authorities, being Cornwall, Plymouth City Council, to fund this. Where else is, there's no money tree where we can just grab it from, so it needs to go to an increase unless the government step in, which we're waiting for. If they want to give us money today, we'll take it. So hope you can support this budget, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hendy. Right, members, we now go to the vote, and it'll be green to support, red to object, and amber to abstain. Thank you very much. Right, thank you very much, members. That vote's carried, 33 for, 12 against and 4 abstentions. Thank you very much. I now move on to item number 6, the Revenue and Capital Budget and proposed council tax levies for the years 2024-2025. Today is the last day to set our budget, and the council tax ahead of the statutory deadline on Monday. It must be voted upon today and go through today. Before we then begin the debate, I would like to inform members that I have not received any written amendments in advance of this meeting. Therefore, should amendments be moved, I will adjourn to ensure that our Section 151 officer at the back has sufficient time to assess the impact on the budget and that all members have the opportunity to consider the implications. I would like also to remind members that speeches must refer to the content of the motion on the floor at the time. Leader, would you like to introduce your report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, members of the Council. I'm moving that the Council budget for 2024-25 is set out on pages 167 and 168 of your papers, which contains the Council tax. I'd like to start by thanking everybody here for their patience and understanding after we had to move the council meeting to today. I'm sure you understand why we had to do it. We had to wait for the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities to allow us a capitalisation direction. Let's be clear, it is not because we needed more money to balance our books. This budget today proves that we can balance our books. Despite years of neglect and defunding by this dreadful Conservative government, 14 years, 14 long and painful years. Our ask to the government, to the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, was really just to simply recognise an accounting treatment. Let's put it at its most simple. For a transaction we made 5 years ago. That transaction has to date saved taxpayers £9 million and will continue to save huge sums of money every year. I don't know why Johnny Mercer's opposed to it, really, do you? As a result of that decision, we have no pension deficit. Hard-working local government pensions, government workers' pensions, are secure, and there is no cost to the taxpayer. So, it gives me great pleasure to present to you the first Labour budget in this council for 2 years. So, I was hoping to speak to Councillor Darcy about it because he's normally at these meetings, isn't he? No, he's not, is he, actually thinking about it? He's in court today for all the right reasons. Correctamundo. Correct. Just before anybody should speculate as to why Councillor Darcy's in court, just make it clear I didn't imply anything there. It's been a huge task to get here. Don't forget, along with the mess in Armada Way, the mess in Old Town Street, the mess in Colin Campbell Court, we also had a mess of finances left to us by the people opposite. So I'd like to thank my cabinet colleagues, and in particular Councillor Mark Lowry, and council officers, including the recently almost retired David Northey, and officers across the organisation for making it happen. Our finance team have been amazing this year, and the challenge to them gets harder every year, and it will do as long as we have a dreadful Conservative government. Normally at this time, the budget meeting is preceded by the defenestration of a leader. And in this great ocean city of ours, we have seen the evolution of the Tory group from an episode of Hornblower through 2 episodes of mutiny on the Bounty and ending in the ignominy of the voyage of the Titanic. So this budget comes as a result of having stable local government in Plymouth for the first time in a few years. And that has enabled a calm examination of the needs of the city, the pressures on this council's finances, and a positive response to the priorities set out to us by the citizens of this city who pay their council tax and expect us to use that money wisely. It's important to set out from the start what this budget is all about, Lord Mayor. It's a budget designed to be ambitious for the city we govern, to respond to changing times, and to make sure that we do our best for every citizen in the city. Our mission for the city of Plymouth is to make this the best place to grow up and to grow old. And we do that today by setting out a clear set of objectives. And this speech today, I will use to look back on the achievements over the last 12 months and give a forward look to the council to show in what direction our ship is headed. Now, as a granddad, I want nothing more for this city than to create opportunities for the next generation, where they can feel that they can stay in our city, where they can get qualifications, where they can get a good job and raise a family in a place that they can call their own. For too many of our citizens at the moment, that simply isn't the case. And that's why in a few weeks, over the next few weeks, we'll be setting out a new plan for homes. It's why in the next few weeks we'll be setting out a new economic plan. It's why in the next few weeks we'll be setting out an amazing skills project. It's why in the next few weeks we're determined to tackle the threat of climate change head on. Great things happen in Plymouth when Labour is in power. Nothing we achieve happens by accident. It happens because good people give good advice upon which we make good decisions. During our 2012 to 2016 administration, we issued a 10-year economic plan. And it's time again, in the aftermath of COVID-19 and the Tory Brexit deal and the disastrous trust budget, for us again to focus on new horizons. It's a chance for us to look what has been achieved, despite the leg irons of a government intent on trashing local government. I unashamedly have a list, as I want to do. So I'm just going to give you a flavour of that last 10 years. We've delivered a £365 million economic development capital programme, levering in a further £600 million of match. We've developed a £1 billion development pipeline. We have secured a rolling average of £30 million in grant funding per annum, and we currently have £100 million to invest in economic development initiatives by 2026. We have transformed the skyline of the city with major regeneration projects at Royal William Yard, Derryford, the city centre and the waterfront, and we have delivered major investment including the Rangers head office, Land Registry HQ, Barcode and Cineworld, and secured Barden's future here in this city. We've become nationally recognised for our cultural placemaking and a £100 million investment at Ocean Studios, The Box, Devonport Market Hall, and as a result of all of that, 40% uplift in our Arts Council funding. We have championed inclusive growth and created a new economic development trust in Whitley. We championed tourism with Destination Plymouth, the launch of Britain's Ocean City brand, Mayflower 400, and the development of cruise business. We've become nationally recognised for our work on the marine sector with Ocean's Gate, the Marine Enterprise Zone, Freeport, and Marine and Maritime Launchpad. And we have developed more employment land than ever before and completed 11 direct developments. Our advanced manufacturing is a runaway success story now, supporting 4,000 full-time equivalent jobs, generating over 328 million of GVA, a massive 78% in GVA over the last 10 years, compared nationally to 4%. That's the difference between Plymouth Labour in charge and a Tory government in charge. We are making real progress with business startups. Plymouth has seen positive birth rates for the last 5 years, whereas England has seen little or no growth. The scale of delivery that we have achieved is nothing short of extraordinary. It is transformational. And without it, Plymouth would have had less business, less jobs, and more pressure on our public services. So, moving forward, our ambition for the city will continue. This isn't a moment to radically change course, so much as responding to emerging national trends and opportunities such as net zero, the growth in defence spending, and the growth of our ports. We will continue to build on our strengths, such as marine. We'll focus our economic delivery plans in 4 main areas: productivity and high-value jobs, inclusive growth, sustainable growth, and civic pride and regeneration. We'll be developing 4 detailed delivery plans in each of these areas, working closely with business over the next 12 months. But I want to give you a little flavour of what's to come. The following projects are already on site and complete over the next 2 to 3 years. £50 million Civic Centre residential development, £25 million Bricksfield sports-led regeneration, £80 million Brunel Plaza regeneration scheme, £25 million City Centre Colin Campbell Court community diagnostic hubs, £26 million Derryford District Centre expansion. We'll work with Babcock and the Navy to maximise the unique opportunity for Plymouth from the most sustained period of defence investment in the city's recent history. We'll really begin to capitalise on the National Marine Park, with a lottery-funded erosion programme now underway. We are really going to be driving the Britain's Ocean City brand, working hard with Destination Plymouth. We're going to be doing a lot of work for the first time on our 4 ports, including some very major announcements on shore power and floating offshore wind. Skills will be a major focus throughout, and we hope shortly to be making a major new announcement on blue-green skills. We'll be focusing on green jobs, developing a new major pipeline of net zero investment, including a major focus on retrofit, heat networks, hydrogen, and green transport. We'll be opening up new major employment land opportunities at Oceans Gate, Langage, Sherford, Derryford, and the city centre. I did tell you we've been busy since we've been in power since last May, right? We'll continue our work on cultural placemaking, but with a major new focus on creative industries. We'll also prioritise the regeneration of the city centre with a major new commitment to delivery of major housing projects, working with Homes England. Now, we have got at least one election to get through over the next 3 months. I'm hoping, I don't know about you, they'll all be on the same day. I don't know what you're hoping for, actually. Perhaps no elections. But I have one message which is in the future going to be thrilling. There are very few cities that can boast of a £2.5 billion in defence investment, £1 billion of regeneration investment, and £200 million of economic development projects over the next few years. None of this is easy. We've had to fight for every pound we've got, Lord Mayor, but I hope that you can feel that this is a sense of something really exciting happening in Plymouth. But look, there is a downside, which is the impact of indifference by the government to the plight of local government and the plight of our residents. And that's resulted, again, in our resources being decimated. And it's still important to take stock of what has happened since George Osborne announced austerity in 2010. 14 years ago, Lord Mayor, when George Osborne got up and announced austerity, Plymouth received £123.8 million in revenue support grant funding. In 2023, we received £11.6 million. Just think about that. 123 million down to 11 million. That's devastating. That's 112 million gone. And what is that? That's not money off the council and councillors. That's money off Plymouth. That's money we can't spend in Plymouth, with Plymouth firms, Plymouth lawyers, Plymouth workers, Plymouth homes, Plymouth jobs. Gone. Where has it gone? Are we poorer or richer as a nation now? Are people in Plymouth better off or worse off than they were 14 years ago? You know the answer to that. We're all worse off. Everybody's worse off, apart from a few people at the very top who got another reward on Tuesday from a chancellor who gave landlords, of which he is one, quite a significant one, a tax break. And I have to say, you know, it does have that feel of the last days of the Roman Empire moment, doesn't it? This stench of corruption and this stench of decay at the heart of government, helping themselves while they can. One last go on the taxpayer before they get defenestrated. But you know, the pressures on us have been enormous. At the time when the pressures on children's services, the elderly, the vulnerable, they've been going up and up and up. And the money we've had available to deal with those has been not going up in real terms. It's been going down. And the crisis has worsened every year, despite the protests that we in local government collectively have made. The government simply refuses to listen. It's a broken system now. It's just been empty promises, while the most vulnerable suffer needlessly. This is really unbelievable, isn't it? Because the government has ensured that the only option to councils is for them, us, to rely on taxing local people more. That's what's been happening. That's why what that cut to a revenue support grant means. It means everything goes to tax. And in those, because council tax is so regressive, the richest parts of the country don't have to put the council tax up as much as places like Plymouth, where most of us live in band A, B or C. It's us that's been taking the pain for the Tories' gain. And we have been warning in this chamber for many years of what was to come, and local government too across the country. But just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. And the cost of living crisis has put an incredible strain on, not just on councils, but more importantly, it's put it on households. And that means that that's increased the demand on council services. And we spend most of our money on the vulnerable people, vulnerable children and adults, people who need more complex care, people who need more help to stop them being homeless, people who need help to get their kids to and from school. Alongside all of this we've had to deal with as a result of a number of things. I know everybody wants to blame the war in Ukraine, and that's quite right. That was significant. But also don't forget that hard Brexit that Boris Johnson boasted about. Don't forget the difference that deal made. One that Tory minister after Tory minister are now pretending somebody else did. And do not forget the 42 days of Sodom, which was the Liz Truss premiership, and the deal that that has done, that blow that that has dealt to every household budget. Anybody who's got a mortgage, anybody who pays rent, anybody who pays a gas bill, anybody who pays an electricity bill can thank Liz Truss and this Tory government for their woes. All of these factors have put us as a council under incredible strain. So what I would say is, for years, the Tory government has been getting away with treating us in this cavalier way. And I say, not for much longer. The proverbial straw is about to break the camel's back. Councils up and down the country have been finding that they can no longer balance their budgets. You'll have seen last week, 18 councils had to ask the government for extra money. Not this one, not this council, we didn't, but the other 18 of that 19 did. Not because of anything, that they necessarily did, although we're one or two in that position, but most of them just trying to close the gap. And you know what? It's not the first tranche. The next tranche is coming. 1 in 5 councillors are now saying they may have a 114 notice issued next over the next year or two. And that, I don't say that lightly, and they don't say that lightly, but it's going to happen. 2/3 of councils are warned of having to make cuts to local neighbourhood services in this year. Many councils are finding that they simply cannot carry on with the resources that they have. And that's why 90% of them, like us, have no choice but to put up the council tax. But remember, Plymouth is still the lowest in Devon and Cornwall. This Conservative government's response to this crisis is to blame councils. Our local Cornish MP who represents the north of the city occasionally, he has been joining in, using us as some sort of piñata, bashing the council, blaming us for poor management of the finances. I mean, let me tell you, Councillor Lowry has delivered a balanced budget and come in on time and on budget for every year he's ever done it. Can't say the same about the absent councillor. But look, we have had enough of being the whipping boys for Johnny Mercer's re-election campaign. We have had enough of him going to Parliament and voting for every damn tax cut, every damn pay cut for us. Every year, the council tax goes up and he votes to cut money for Plymouth. And we've had enough. We've had enough. So, not only today, Lord Mayor, are we presenting a balanced budget, we have managed to produce a budget that doesn't cut services. In fact, we are boosting the services that the public have told us that they rely on the most. The services that matter most to them. A budget that supports the recruitment of desperately needed social workers to help protect vulnerable children. A budget that continues to deliver our priorities and ambition to build a better Plymouth. This budget will ensure that we can deliver against the priorities that matter to everyone. Jobs, affordable homes, feeling safe, finding a dentist in the NHS, supporting the elderly, looking after children at the risk of harm, looking after our roads and improving bus services. These priorities have never been more important than at this time, as we know just how hard the cost of living crisis is impacting on many Plymouth households. This Labour administration has made supporting residents during the cost of living crisis a top priority. And I don't wish to steal anybody else's thunder behind me. But you know, we have been working hard to help people with food costs. We have been working hard to provide a network of welcoming spaces and doing things like bringing back a little bit of joy to people who need it. So I know many people will wonder how we are still able to invest millions of pounds in Plymouth while Johnny Mercer goes round trying to cut our budget and blame us. How can we afford to do it? We've done it, quite simply, Lord Mayor, because unlike the Conservatives, at local level and at national level, we are fighting for every pound, not fighting each other. We need MPs like Luke Pollard who fights for Plymouth and votes for us. What we don't need are MPs like Johnny Mercer, who takes lumps out of the council and votes to take chunks of funding away from Plymouth. We need a change of government. We need it now if we're to get Plymouth's future back and secure Britain's future. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Lowry, I understand that you were seconding the report. Would you like to speak now or reserve?
Yes, Lord Mayor, I'm very happy to second the report and I reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, anybody like to speak? Councillor Lugger.
I thank you, my Lord Mayor. May I begin by thanking the 151 officer and his team for all the hard work they have done in what has been a difficult and protracted budgetary process caused by this council having to go to apply for a retrospective accounting decision from DLUG. Now, Councillor Evan coos about the savings to the pension fund, but what he fails to tell us is that there's 2 investigations which are pending. 2 investigations pending. Let's refrain from comment on that. Let's await the outcome of those investigations. But suffice it to say, this authority owes them tremendous debt of gratitude for the letter received from the local government minister, the Conservative local government minister, who's allowed this meeting today to take place. My Lord Mayor, councillors opposite, especially Councillor Evans, speak and claim that the financial position of this council is all the fault of the government.
a misguided belief that every single local Labour aspiration and priority should be paid for by central government. This is misguided, to say the least. A happy result is a capital programme that delivers sustainability across the city. We do thank the vision of David Draffin and his team for the wonderful projects that are in the pipeline across the city. Thanks again must be given, my Lord Mayor, and I emphasise to the government, the Conservative government, that has made this happen through external grants. All the projects quoted by Councillor Evans have been financed by the Conservative government. There's the Plymouth and South Devon Freeport, 25 million. The waterfront regeneration at 19.9 million. Shared Prosperity Fund, Future High Streets Fund, to name the least, all provided by a Conservative government. Now, let's look at the revenue. We thank again the investment of His Majesty's government in the form of the Household Support Fund and the amendments to that, helping, not like the Labour Party are doing, helping with the cost of living, providing essentials such as food on the table, such as paying for utility bills in this cost of living crisis. We have, of course, the national living wages increase, the boost of pensions, the increasing working age benefits, all going up by 6.7%. Can I also draw members' attention, my Lord Mayor, if you please, to the grants mentioned in paragraphs 622, 623 and 624 on page 183 of your budget papers today. Again, a government supporting this council providing essential services. But notwithstanding, my Lord Mayor, the good that has been done, it has been unpicked by this council tax rise. Where there is a cost of living crisis that the government is trying to address, we have a Labour administration there compounding the problem with another hike in council tax. Let us welcome, of course, the Chancellor's combination now of tax cuts, changes to NICs, high-income child benefit amendments, all of which will support the most vulnerable in this city. Can we turn now, please, to page 176 of your budgetary papers? This is another old chestnut. We have expressed this concern before. The reserves are too low. We have been told the level of general fund reserves at 8 million is insufficient and unsustainable. We urged the Labour Party opposite to do something about this, and we have been beating this drum many times before. Finally, my Lord Mayor, a couple of observations on the budget process. I watched with interest budget scrutiny. It would appear that many cabinet members were completely underwhelmed, I think is perhaps the word, or maybe shocked at the amount of money that was actually put into their respective budgets. And I also note, when we're talking about value for money, the planning committee has only met 4 times. Is this value for money? I beg the question. No disrespect to the chair and vice chair who do a most admirable job, but money needs to be looked at in a different way. This budget, in sum, Lord Mayor, is a missed opportunity to help the people of Plymouth when they need it most. The hike in council tax, the hike on the Tamar Bridge toll, this budget adds to, compounds, as opposed to alleviate the cost of living crisis that the Conservative government has done its best to ameliorate. My Lord Mayor, I will now leave it to individual shadow cabinet members to raise any questions they see fit on the subject of the budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lugger. Members, are there anybody else who'd like to speak on this matter? Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. I wanted to thank Councillor Evans for a really entertaining speech. Went on a bit, but it was very entertaining. And it all sounds absolutely marvellously brilliant. However, I would have liked to hear a little something in greener transport, a thought to aviation perhaps. We still have a non-functioning airport after 10 years, which is incredibly sad for Plymouth. And Councillor Evans, so please, when you talk about all these sort of things, could we see a real push towards the reopening of our airport? Please, can we get Plymouth flying again? Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Right, moving on, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, members. Well, thank you for having the opportunity to actually speak to the budget and to actually, through you, Lord Mayor, to commend Councillor Evans and his cabinet for the way that they participated in the budget scrutiny in December. They certainly, all of them, where they were asked questions to take away particular issues, committed to doing so. And I recognise in the budget pack today that some of the asks that I personally raised have been taken forward. Others have been considered, and clearly the budget has not been able to perhaps take that particular issue forward. But I welcome very much and thank you, through you, Lord Mayor, Councillor Evans and the Cabinet for at least listening to the wider representations of the Council. I think it's fair to say that you know, unlike perhaps all members of the Council, I do trust to a large extent what the BBC says. And to put in context local government finance, the BBC have been reporting nationally that local government is in a crisis position, and Councillor Evans mentioned it in his speech. And therefore, I find I'm a little surprised when there are members in this Council who live in the same community as we do, who wish to purport and support local government, are not prepared to stand up and be counted. So we'll see in the coming weeks, as we've seen in the last few weeks, leaflets purporting to improve road resurfacing, you know, deal with potholes, support local green spaces, support the elderly and children, yet actually the government isn't supporting local government as it should in allowing us as councillors to deliver for our local communities. So I do struggle when we've had high inflation at sort of 10%. We've had, and I totally support the increase in the living wage and those on low wages, where the cost to the local authority have significantly increased. You know, inflation is factored into the supplies that the council buys, into the wages the council pays, and yet government says to local authorities you can't put council tax up by more than 4.99%. So naturally, if you've got high inflation, high increases, and you've capped by the amount of money you can put it up, then naturally it's going to diminish the resources that local authorities have. So when residents get literature from political parties and they're advocating that they can do all these things, but they're not prepared to actually fight for those resources, then I think they ought to be open and honest to the electorate. It can't be right that local government continues to be strangled in the manner in which local government finance is calculated in this country. And I hope as we get into the general election campaign that actually political parties will set out an honest deal for local government, a deal that will make council budget meetings easier in future instead of harder as they have been over the last few years. So I very much, Lord Mayor, there are aspects of the budget that clearly, if I had more influence over, would be different. I accept the Labour Party have done the best they can, but I think it's important on all of us as local ambassadors for our communities that we actually be seeking from government a better deal for the local community of Plymouth, and more importantly for local government generally. And until that comes, I don't think we should relent in our willingness to stand up and be counted rather than trying to save our own political skins. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. Now move on to Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to talk about the Children's Services budget to begin with. And the budget setting process has been achieved as a result of some very intense analysis and detailed planning over a sustained period of time. Colleagues from across the council have been involved in building a budget that is, most importantly of all, realistic, addressing issues arising from volume and demand and the current climate of the economic market, and allows the opportunity for investment within the service on areas such as increased staffing to meet increased demand and maintain appropriate caseloads, staff training and development, and improve the offer for Plymouth's in-house foster carers. And I think Councillor Lugger might need some lessons in reading the room, because I think it's fair if I speak on behalf of my Cabinet colleagues. There was nothing underwhelming or disappointing about the budgets that we're talking about today. And in fact, I welcome the extra investment, and I thank Councillor Lowry particularly and David Northey and his team for all of their work on this. As you know, a significant issue for children's services is the rising costs of independent specialist and residential placements. I've rehearsed this argument many times in many arenas, and if you remember, Councillor Creswell and I brought a motion about profiteering in this sector to full council in January. And I was heartened to see that Wednesday's budget, in the budget, the government says it's going to develop proposals to see what more can be done to combat profiteering and create a sustainable market in this area. And I look forward to seeing what those are, because it is something that really does need to be solved at a national level, so we don't keep having this conversation over and over, year on year, while the most profiteering providers rake it in on the back of the most vulnerable in society, laughing all the way to the bank, while local government work out day in, day out, how to pay these extortionate fees. We had a very successful foster care summit at the end of January, which has set the programme for growth and support of our in-house fostering and special guardianship service. Our internal foster carers are very important to Plymouth, and we're committed to increase the number of them and to provide a really good package of reward and support. So in line with the feedback from the foster carers at the Fostering Summit, and to value the important work they do in caring for the city's children and recognise the cost of caring for a child, the Council has made financial provision in the budget to cover the recommendations from them. Final decisions about this will be made in consultation with foster carers, and I hope to be able to announce those soon, but they certainly will be eye-catching and reflect what foster carers have told us, and most importantly reflect how much we value them and how much they do for our children, and will underline why being a local authority foster carer is the best choice. As I said, I welcome the extra investment. It's what the children we care for need to give them the very best start and the very best future. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about the budget for culture. I'm really, really proud that through this budget, we'll be continuing to invest in culture in Plymouth. And we don't just do this because of our love of art and museums and events or theatre. We do this because of the incredible return on our investment and the impact we know that cultural investment has on our city and our residents. Our journey on culture placemaking and culture-led regeneration has been nationally recognised by the Arts Council, who published a major case study on Plymouth this year. This year's budget will see the box bring over 250,000 visitors to the city, an incredible international programme of arts and cultural events, including Planet Ocean, a superb cultural schools programme, an incredible engagement programme working with many of our more deprived communities in the city. Support for cultural organisations including Plymouth Culture, the Theatre Royal, Barbican Theatre and the Arts Cinema. An amazing city events programme on the Hoe, including the new summer sessions. And we'll continue to bid for more cultural grants, building on the £50 million worth of grants secured over the past 5 years. And talking about my ambition, which is personal for this budget, I'm really delighted I'm leading a major new cultural education partnership to improve educational access for young people to cultural activities and joining up our offer. And we'll be bidding for a new Arts Council Place partnership following a visit from the Arts Council Area Director. I'm so proud that in Plymouth we have made space for this investment to continue at a time when many local authorities are simply cutting culture and, to put it frankly, at a time that people need it the most. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lang. Councillor Brysdale.
Lord Mayor, this is not the first time I've risen in this chamber to discuss grass cutting. Despite what the opposition have tried to suggest over repeated meetings, it's not the first time that there have been challenges in this area. The customer services data from last year was similar to the previous year, about 500 examples of resident feedback and 300 councillor cases per year. I've made the point before about the long-term cuts to the grounds maintenance department. Until now, 35% down over the last decade's conservative austerity measures.
In this national context, it's perhaps not surprising that the budget we inherited from the previous administration last spring was, just like the previous year, woefully inadequate to regularly cut hundreds of hectares of council-owned land. You will know that I'm personally passionate about enhancing the biodiversity benefits of our extensive meadows across the city. But I accept the wider public confidence in that approach relies on the council fulfilling its regular cut targets on amenity areas. We are a listening council. We have listened to the public and spent months preparing nuanced improvements for the new season. That is why we've added an additional £300,000 to the annual revenue budget for grass cutting. It will fund 10 additional staff members, including doubling the number of permanent operatives on the ground. We've created new dedicated teams to give additional attention to spaces of crucial importance to local residents, particularly play parks and crematoriums. We've also invested in equipment better suited to cutting and cleaning up longer, thicker grass. We're making 76 changes to the cutting regime based on resident and councillor feedback, whilst maintaining the overall 60-40 balance, which is crucial for biodiversity and wildlife corridors. Whilst this additional £300,000 investment won't mean that every patch of grass across the city will resemble a putting green this summer, it will substantially improve the service delivery, helping us to meet our targets and the expectations of residents across communities. But Lord Mayor, I didn't come here today just to talk about watching the grass grow. Just like we promised to be a listening council, we also promised to make green investment and jobs a top priority. As you can see from the capital programme, we've ramped up the ambition and innovation of investment in both green and blue spaces. I think it's fair to say that we're putting Plymouth back on the environmental map for the right reasons. Plymouth is home to the first national marine park in the country, and I'm excited to be working closely with Councillor Evans, Councillor Creswell, and a whole host of officers on the Nature Boost and education programmes in particular, which will transform the engagement with our marine environment. Last October, we were the first local authority in the country to invest in a council-owned habitat bank, Ocean City Nature, that will offer a huge boost for local biodiversity enhancements. This winter, we've been planting 3,500 trees across the city through the Plymouth and South Devon Community Forest, and we've got millions of more pounds lined up for tree planting schemes over the next 2 years. On the net zero side, we've significantly increased the ratchet for the Climate Emergency Investment Fund after it was slashed by the previous Tory administration. There's been international recognition of our district heating work, which included winning an award at COP for the Mill Bay heating and cooling grid. It doesn't stop there. We're driving significant investment between now and 2027 into the Civic District Energy Scheme, whilst working on radical plans for wider heat network in different parts of the city. Our social values are at the heart of our net zero mission, with over £10 million lined up next year, working with partners to deliver energy efficiency upgrades and advice, particularly for those in social housing. Requiring a similar magnitude of investment, we're also working on one of the largest community solar farms in the country at Chelsen Meadow. I could go on, from Councillor Evans' work with economic development around green jobs, particularly hydrogen, retrofitting and low-carbon marine, to Councillor Coker's work driving forward sustainable transport and EV charging. This budget shows our administration's future-facing commitment to a cleaner, greener Plymouth. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hayden.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And obviously I will be supporting this Labour budget, but I would like just to give my personal thanks to Councillor Larry and his team, not just for setting this budget that we're looking at today, but also for keeping a very close eye on our finances from May to now. Just going on to, in our budget papers on page 197, you will see that we have the police precept in front of us. Under a Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner, it's very sad to say that she has increased her precept by 45% since she has been in power. To you or me, I'm going to explain that that's an extra £100 in our pocket since she took office. So people will be saying to me, what are you getting for losing £100? I'm going to say to you, you're going to get a longer time of waiting for 101 calls. You're going to see less police on your streets. And you're going to see the number of young people who are now victims of crime has raised. But, Lord Mayor, please let me tell you what a Labour administration can do for you and have been doing for you since May. So, under the Labour administration, we've been able to clean up the mess left behind the Conservative with Ramada Way. With the new project going forward, we have been able to make the city centre a safer place to shop, work and play. We're taking great care of where we put our CCTV, and our lighting has been designed to make people feel safer, and everyone who comes into the city, day or night, will be more comfortable. We have kept our commitment to working with our VOG Charter by supporting partners in delivering some really good campaigns and conferences. We've supported the Safe Bus, park officers, street wardens, the Purple Flag, and I probably could go on a lot more. We have also made changes to our taxi policy, which is helping more people to become drivers, and it will also help more people to be able to come around, to get around the city. Our library service, not only have we not closed any libraries, like under a Conservative administration, we've expanded our libraries. We have been able to support people with the cost of living from donating a coat to bring a tin to support the food banks and offering warm spaces. We have seen a rise in footfall coming through our libraries, more children taking part in Summer Reading Challenge. And for some of the lovely events that have been happening in our libraries, I'm really proud to say for the first time this year, we had the Birmingham Royal Ballet hosting a story time with a real ballerina. And she's coming back later this year to tell another story in another library. Also, for the first time ever in any of our libraries, we're going to have an opera happening later on this year. So I would like to say a big thank you to the English Touring Opera that will be performing in May in one of our libraries. Our crematorium. As you all know, I feel very passionate about our bereavement services. I can feel my colleagues here listening now because I know they want to know more about it. So, as you know, we're building on those 3 ceremony rooms, the public cafe, with 2 function rooms that will be available for families to hire for wakes and other family event functions. All these buildings are set in a calm and peaceful setting in wildflower meadows. So, Lord Mayor, you're probably thinking, so what does this budget in front of us today, how are we going to help the people of Plymouth? So, I'm very lucky to say this Labour administration is united together as a group, and we will be able to move so much more forward. We will not be increasing the bereavement services, as we understand that so many people are struggling with the cost of living crisis. We will be opening the new crematorium later this year, which will reduce the emissions and the carbon footprint. We'll be starting a new scheme for 2 electrical connection points up on the Hoe to support traders and ice cream vans, and this will help our air quality. We will be continuing to support the VOG by supporting our partners to deliver the good work and the partnership that we have. I'm also really pleased, and I'm really sorry to see that Councillor Smith isn't here because I'm sure she would be really interested. Some of the money that is being funded, we're going to go out to communities, to those grassroots communities who are working with our women and young girls and being able to allow them to apply for some funding and get
Councillor
right
Hayden,
down.
can you finish off, please?
Well, then I've really got to finish by saying this budget is going to give me St. Budo Lewes, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Cresswell.
My Lord Mayor, I support this budget in respect of my portfolio responsibility for education, skills and apprenticeships. This budget will deliver for our children and young people, and in doing so will deliver for our city. I start by saying a thank you to Councillor Mark Lowry and the finance team who have done such an excellent job against the face of such financial austerity, not brought on by any of us, but by 14 years of unrelenting austerity and punishment, with real deep cuts to all local authorities the length and breadth of the country. You have produced a balanced budget, as you must. However, you must have had many a sleepless night. The precarious financial position of local authorities is something that's now being spotlighted. This weekend, I listened to Andy Haldane, previously the chief economist at the Bank of England. He stated that the biggest financial risk in this country is the crisis facing local government, and that the budget, Wednesday's budget, should be addressing this to restore our public services. But that clearly never happened. At a conference last November, I listened to John Pearce, President of the Association of Directors of Children's Services. He highlighted the pressures that local governments are under, specifically regarding special educational needs and homeschool transport. Two areas that come under my budget heading. Challenges that all authorities are facing. And I particularly want to raise the demands here and the fact that so much work is being done and undertaken in Plymouth on homeschool transport, including route optimisation, planning and software, and the 2024-2025 budget has taken into account those increasing needs and demands with extra funds. And also finance is being made available for 2 additional travel trainers. This will help to train our young people up so that they can access and use public transport independently. This will be a saving of $52,000 initially, which in itself is actually more than just positive, because it's important, because it will mean that our SEND young people become more independent. Councillor Lowry and his team have worked to support us on this. This is more than just pounds and pence. It's long-term life skills and chances for those young people. Despite all of the challenges of finance, we recognise it's only through relentless culture of improvement that we shift the dial to give our young people and our children the best possible opportunities and outcomes. It's encouraging to see some strong improvement across our city schools. This is the result of partnership working through our place-based approach with multi-academy trusts and schools. More children now attend schools that are rated as good or better in the city. This now stands at 86.6%, up from 77.1% in the 2021-2022 academic year. There are some encouraging signs with our Key Stage 4 outcomes. Although we sit below national benchmark for the basics, the gap between us and the national picture is closing at an increasing rate. Standard and strong passes for Plymouth children are increasing at a higher rate than the national increase. Maintaining pace and focus through our partnership working and investment means there's no reason why Plymouth children can't equal and even exceed national performance. We know we have demands at resend, sufficiency in places. Modular accommodations already been handed over in Cambridge and Milford. We are continuing to rapidly establish additional spaces in special school places for September 2024. Sites have also been identified with existing mainstream suitable for satellite provision. The budget ensures that the short-term and our longer-term plans are coming together to deliver the best for our children. Long-term, this will save us money. Children and young people will have their needs met in their communities, saving on transport and expensive private providers, as well as the benefits of just being local. I have to mention skills and apprenticeship training, which this budget shows a fundamental commitment to. It's a budget for unlocking Plymouth's potential. We now have 60 SEND internship placements across the city, supported placements. Last year, we just had 9. There's so much more in the pipeline on apprenticeships and skills opportunity at all levels, including degree apprenticeships. The economy can't grow without skilled workforce. We know that. We know what skills we need, and we have a plan. It's supported by this budget. I end this as I began, thanking Councillor Lowry for listening to and understanding the needs of my portfolio and for his challenge. We've had some robust conversations, but most of all, your commitment, Mark, by showing that giving us a budget which offers hope for our children, hope for our people, and hope for our city. Against 14 years of Conservative government and hardship, I hope tonight, and hope that you, Mark, have a good night's sleep. It's well deserved.
Thank you, Councillor Cresswell. Councillor Hendy.
Just a little chat about the precepts of the council tax. So the Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service Resources Committee, they met on the 5th of February 2024, and they had two options to consider. One being, A, being a freeze in the council tax precept, and B, being a 2.99% increase to the council tax precept. Option B was chosen, and this equates to 24 pence monthly for a Band D property. And what does that mean? It means that we're able to maintain the service that we currently get. So it's not that we're going to get any more, but we need to maintain what we've got. So there's no way that I can vote for my friends, my family, my residents, and the people of Plymouth to be any less safe in their houses in the nights and months coming than they currently are today. That's why I'll be supporting this budget.
Councillor Rainsford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to highlight the importance of spending in this proposed budget on homelessness. It's a nationally shocking and growing problem. Its most obvious iteration are the people sleeping rough in doorways, green spaces and car parks in areas like St Peter and the waterfront, up on the Hoe. Unseen are the huge numbers of families forced into bed and breakfast, young people sofa surfing, and people continuing to be evicted under Section 21 notices. Over 500 families have faced proceedings in Plymouth since 2019. And that's an important date because that's the date that the Conservative government said they were going to ban them. It still hasn't happened. Homelessness has a cost, which the budget we set has to try and meet. It affects people's health and education outcomes, which in turn affects our local economy. I'm pleased that since last May's election, steps have been taken to increase the availability of temporary accommodation for young people and single people. And effort and money is being spent to actually try and prevent homelessness, which in turn saves money, as well as spending more money on family housing. Councillor Evans spoke about investment in housing, which is desperately needed. Between 2021 and 23, numbers in bed and breakfast in this city rose. But in the last 10 months, we've stabilised the number, and it's taken a huge effort. And I'd like to thank Councillor Pemberthy, all the council staff and their partners, voluntary sector and charities, for their commitment. I'm pleased that in this budget we've set aside capital to buy properties, worked with Young Devon and PATH to access finance from Sheltered Housing Accommodation Programme. That's some 20 million. This is money which was not in the budget we inherited. It's a significant amount, and I would like to say to Johnny Mercer, you can't take credit for it. Homelessness is something which is a disgrace and we should all be ashamed of. And we should do all we can to ensure that people have a safe, warm place to live. And that's why I'm supporting this budget. And as a footnote, Lord Mayor, I would also welcome the commitment to fund the work at Devil's Point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rainsford. Councillor Dingle.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. This budget has helped St Budo in many ways. In particular, the velocity machine has made a huge difference by improving road defects in the area, and this is something that's been brought up to me by many local residents. Furthermore, after almost a year without bus shelters on St Budo Square, and after many appeals to myself and my ward colleague Sally Hayden by members of the public fed up of waiting in the rain and cold for buses, we managed to successfully campaign to get 2 temporary bus shelters installed, which brings me on to the impact the St Budo interchange work is going to have on the area. The current improvements being undertaken as part of the interchange project, which include extending the bus bays and providing new bus shelters, providing space for barrel bikes, and improving the street lighting, will all contribute to improving sustainable transport links within the city and encouraging more residents and commuters to walk, cycle, and use public transport. It will also play a pivotal role in connecting commuters from South East Cornwall and West Devon to parts of the city with employment and healthcare opportunities in both the Derriford and Northern Corridor and city centre and waterfront growth areas. I know it would be naive of me to think that we still don't have plenty to do, so I look forward to the impact this Labour budget is going to have. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dingle. Councillor Stevens with a V.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It might not be the biggest figure in the papers, but I do want to thank Councillor Lowry for the money going into the Police Directorate, which means that the planning enforcement team is now back up to full complement and on a par with similar unitary authorities. This is very, very good news, Lord Mayor, for all our constituents who often tear their hair out when they see planning breaches, and it means that we are now able to respond as quickly as we would like. Now, Councillor Lugger showed his usual courtesy when he mentioned me and Councillor Toohey earlier on, and I'm always grateful for that. And he's right that sometimes the planning committee doesn't meet, but that's for two reasons. The first is when planning applications referred in by councillors for their constituents achieve the result the councillors are looking for. And we were going to meet last month. We were going to consider an application in Petersfield Close, but that was recommended for refusal after strong intervention by Councillor Tippett on behalf of his constituents. We were going to consider an issue in Carew Gardens, but following hard lobbying by Councillor Moore and Councillor Riley, that was recommended for refusal as well. So we don't waste public money for having meetings just for meeting's sake. When councillors get the results they're looking for, it's much quicker to get on and issue the decision notice and not bother with meetings and expensive reports. So well done to the councillors speaking up on behalf of their constituents, and well done to officers for not scheduling meetings which would waste public money. The second reason the committee doesn't meet is part of a historical cycle. Whenever Conservative governments crash the economy, we have fewer planning applications coming in because there's less money to go around. You can look back every time there's a Conservative Chancellor that does that, and the results are always the same. But fear not. The cost of living crisis that Councillor Patel referred to earlier doesn't apply to everybody, and the good news is that the Planning Committee will go ahead and meet in 2 weeks' time. Everybody's welcome to come along and watch. And the first item on the agenda is in Fulston Avenue in St Budo, submitted by a Mr Patel. So it's good that some people escape the cost of living crisis. The Planning Committee is scheduled to meet. The department is working very well on behalf of all of our constituents, and everybody is welcome to come along and watch.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Tippett.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. This Labour budget is absolutely incredible in supporting our city's residents, and I want to highlight just a few of the areas today. The first is this is the first budget with Councillor Hayden's transformative new taxi policy that contains a wide range of measures to support Plymouth residents getting home safely and support our taxi trade in getting their job done. I'm really, really pleased that this is now fully council policy after the last taxi licensing committee fully approved Councillor Hayden's policy. The second, and I know Councillor Briarsdelve loves to talk about this, is the grass cutting. It's fantastic to see the continued and improved support for grass cutting in our city, and I know residents, particularly in Hartley Vale, who really do love their Neil Gardens green space, will be so pleased to know that the money is there to keep that grass cut so children can enjoy playing on it this summer. So thank you so much, Councillor Brysdale, for all of your hard work in making that happen. And finally, my Lord Mayor, I think everyone across this chamber knows I couldn't miss another opportunity to talk about the bus services returned to Compton Ward residents by the incredible work from Councillor Mark Coker. The 30 and 31 serving residents in Manamead and Hartley Vale, and the 27 serving residents in the Efford part of the ward that's now going to Derriford Hospital and has been returned on Saturdays is just a fantastic achievement. I know residents really love this service, and every week myself and Councillor Penrose hear from residents about how the Labour administration has given them their independence back, has given them their lives back, which is so important, and it wouldn't have been possible without your hard work, Councillor Coker. So thank you so much for making that possible. For any residents unsure about how this difference has happened, it's because of a Plymouth Labour administration that puts Plymouth residents first. And I am so proud to play my small part in that, but it wouldn't be possible without the hard work of all of our cabinet members that do an incredible job serving our city's residents. So thank you so much to all of you. Compton residents say thank you, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully, another year of a Plymouth Labour administration. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to add my voice to the chorus of thanks to the officers and members who've worked so hard throughout the year to bring this budget before us today. I'd just also like to amplify one of Councillor Hayden's and also Councillor Tippett's points that recent changes to taxi policy have removed some barriers to applying for a private hire licence, which will encourage more drivers to enter the trade. This can only improve our city transport infrastructure, leading to an easier flow of movement for both businesses and residents, subsequently leading to a boost to both the city's overall and nighttime economies. A welcome additional development as people struggle through this current cost of living crisis. I would urge all members to support the budget as proposed. Thank you.
Councillor Stevens with a PH.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I want to thank Councillor Coker, Councillor Lowry and all Cabinet officers for putting this budget together with Council officers. And I speak with my walking and cycling hat on rather than helmet. To thank everyone for securing funding and seeking grants to further the cycling and walking infrastructure around the city. This makes a big difference to those people who wish to walk, cycle or wheel safely and off-road. And Dunstan residents are particularly pleased that this section from Colesdown Hill to Elberton is about to be completed this year, which will link from Lara Bridge up towards Sherford, its final hopeful destination. So I want to thank that, and I was reminded by Councillor Bridgman when she mentioned the absence of green funding. This is green funding. This is helping through walking, cycling and so on, and I urge all people to either have a walk or on a bike, and as you walk along the paths in the next year, you can actually watch people having their grass cut, which is good, more often than normal. So there's lots of reasons to support this budget, and I commend it to the Council today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care, I've been able to progress issues that are really dear to the hearts of our residents and colleagues. Who hasn't spoken to someone concerned about the health services or care of a family member or friend that needs support? Indeed, the consultation responses from the public on the budget proposals, it was the most important issue for most respondents. This year, I've set up a dental task force to work with partners across the city and the NHS to find ways of increasing the number of people on the decrease in the number of people on the dental waiting list. And this is not an easy task, but I'm determined to persevere and find ways to achieve this. Last year, I braved the gauntlet of Year 6 pupils at Whitley Primary School to hear for myself their concerns. They'd been very, very vocal on TV and radio interviews. Those concerns that were echoed there come from everywhere across the city. So I was really pleased to hear that Plymouth Dental School had been able to respond to some of those concerns and was able to offer 11 primary schools the opportunity for Key Stage 2 pupils to receive dental provision. It's a start, and certainly not all the schools have taken up the provision that's been offered. So between myself and the head of the dental school, we're going to make sure that we remind them of this opportunity. It's a little, but it's a start, as I say. But I'm not giving up, and we will keep going on with this. Hopefully, if there's a change of government, we might see a change to the dental contracts, and I think that may be one of those key issues. Our officers have supported residents within care home settings. It's been quite a traumatic year with various homes closing or threatening to close. So our officers and teams have been kept really busy with that. But that's an important issue. And we need to make sure that any resident that's currently living in a care setting feels safe and secure, and they know what's going to happen if something unfortunately goes wrong. We launched Caring Plymouth. And Caring Plymouth is there to train people up and to get people thinking about a career within the caring profession. Not just the NHS, but whether it's domiciliary care, whether it's working in a care home, they need to know that there is somebody behind them and that will support them, and to make sure that they know where to go to get the skills, whether it's educational skills or whether it's practical skills, and where they can go to apply and be confident, whether it's interview skills, whatever they need. We need to be pushing and making sure that our residents feel they can go and try something different. It's not just for young people. Many of us change professions throughout our lives, and that's what's important, that we have that option. We've achieved a great deal in the budget for 23 to 24. A brilliant outcome of a balanced budget, despite all the pressures and the demands of the service. And I say a big thank you to the team for doing that. Not an easy task when you've got an ogre of a cabinet member keeping an eye on what we're all doing on finance, I tell you. He's left the room, so I can say that now. Moving to the budget for 24-25. Yes, the net budget has increased by 10 million compared to last year. But this is the result of the complexity of need of our clients, but it's also the impact of inflation. I know that those pressures are going to carry on. I certainly know that the packages of care, if we think about what Councillor Lang has said about the packages of care younger people are having, they are soon going to trickle through to us in adult social care. But I'm really pleased to be able to announce that whilst we had a welcomed rise in the national living wage, that had a significant impact on our domiciliary care providers in the city. So we've therefore taken the decision to increase the budget to reflect this pressure, and we'll be including this in the letter that goes out to all our providers next week. We've been working diligently to support our providers to progress the much-needed Community Diagnostic Centre in Colin Campbell Court. This centre is really needed, And the services that will be offered from that will have a great impact on the health and residence of the people living in the west of our city. We also work so closely with the hospital to make sure that anybody that needs transfer from hospital gets that quickly to relieve the bed pressures that are going on. The public health grant, yes, it might have gone up, but we've known for a long time that the public health grant that we get in Plymouth is not comparable to elsewhere, and we have fought for that over the years, and no doubt various cabinet members will remember that over the years, how we fought together to get that increased.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Can you finish, please?
Thank you.
Councillor Down.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Listen to what most people have already been saying today. No one in this chamber can be unaware of the fact this has been an extremely difficult year financially, trying to deliver an impossible budget set by the previous Conservative administration. So let's just look at what we've actually delivered this year and also look forward to what we're going to do next year to make sure that we do our very best for the residents of Plymouth. The cost of living is still a key worry for so many people, not made any easier after the Conservative budget this year. Councillor Lugger, according to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, you have to be earning more than £26,000 a year to benefit from the 4% cut in national insurance because of the freezing of the tax threshold. So those vulnerable low-income families in our city still struggling with the cost of living. During the last 9 months, thousands of people have accessed the cost of living hub on the website. Most of the time, they're looking for where they can get advice and support about their energy costs, housing needs, debt advice, where they're able to find food cooperatives and food banks, where they can get mental health support. On the positive side, people and organisations across the city have come together to deliver a wide supportive offer. Organisations and communities have come forwards and made it so that people can access free activities. Households and families have had access to activities that don't cost a lot of money. £1 swims at the Life Centre, free swimming at Mount Wise, family activities at the Box and in our libraries. The provision of 70 warm spaces across the city. Just in the last 4 weeks, 3,000 people have accessed support in our cost of living hub. And it's really important that we keep this going into next year. The offer that we're developing through our human resources, supporting our staff, is important. Nearly everything we do in the council relies on people. We've not delivered the legacy savings that the previous administration left in there because without a strong HR department, we can't do staff development, we can't do staff recruitment, we can't make sure that we have the best people in the council delivering the best services that we can for our people across the city. This is important because we need good social workers. We need people to work on the front line, in our housing department, dealing with the rise in homelessness, working with families in crisis, people who can help grow our economy and look after our streets and parks, who collect our rubbish. All our staff deserve to be supported and valued. I want to talk about the customer experience. We're going to consolidate on what we've already got. Again, I didn't make the savings, the legacy savings that were put in by the previous Conservative administration, because that would have meant taking people out of teams and people out of our front-facing offer. We have to be able to have ways for residents to contact us. The council isn't perfect. We're looking at modern technology and efficiencies to see how we can deliver a better customer experience for people who contact the council. We've got an improving digital offer, we have a telephone offer, and we're expanding on new practices for those people who are digitally excluded, who need help and that little bit of extra support to be able to get to the services that they need in the council. We have an increasing demand for services and a reduced capacity to deliver. We want to use IT and transformation to help our teams free up their time to enable our staff to help those who have higher support needs, whether digitally, on the phone, in our libraries, or with our specialist teams across the council. Then on to sport and leisure. Working with Plymouth Active Leisure at the Life Centre, Plimpton Pool, Tinside Pool, Mount Wise, which we've kept free, working with the Mountbatten Centre, contributing to the National Marine Park project, working with our sports development teams to make sure that we deliver as much activity as we can for families that may otherwise not be able to engage in activity. Active to Thrive, working with partners such as Plymouth Argyle Community Trust, the YMCA, Marjon, Plymouth Active Leisure, working together so we can try and engage with young people, older people. We want people to be active because one of the things we know is that the more active you are, probably the better your health and physical well-being will be. And it's not easy. A lot of these things are not statutory functions, and we have to do it working in collaboration and in partnership across the city. When you look at the investment we've put into Brickfields with Plymouth Argyle Community Trust, working with all the sports bodies and Sport England, we deliver a health and well-being hub right in the middle of the most deprived city. Provision for people who want to play sport at a competitive level and for residents who can be active too. And that's before we look at what we do in our green spaces, maintaining pitches, working in partnership with our sports clubs to enable the best way of providing sports facilities across the city. My final comment, if we want Plymouth to be that place where people can live, work and have access to activities and be healthy, we have to remain aspirational for those people, no matter what gets thrown at us.
Thank you, Councillor Downer. Councillor Beer.
Lord Mayor, I think every council meeting I always say to myself before I walk in the room, I'm not going to talk today. And then something happens and I can't help myself. I've got a lot of sympathy for the Labour administration for inheriting such a dreadful budget from last year. It's shameful that the previous inexperienced cabinet cut the children's budget last year and set it up to fail. That has impacted on the most vulnerable children and young people in our city. This afternoon we've had talk about the amount of planning meetings that we have, Lord Mayor, talking about value for money, but the children's scrutiny for this last 12 months has seen 2 Conservative spaces unfilled. Where's the commitment of our Conservative members?
Point of order. Did you not say at the beginning of this meeting, with regard to item 6 on the agenda, it was to be on budgetary matters? What is the relevance of this question?
Absolutely. Councillor Beer, please stick to the subject.
It's value for money, Lord Mayor. That's what I'm referring to.
No, we're discussing the budget, Councillor Beer.
Yes.
Discussing the budget, not discussing people's attendance. Let's be clear on this, please. Councillor Lugger, we do not need interventions from yourself.
Lord Mayor, excuse me, Lord Mayor, I'd like an apology for that because I'm actually discussing value for money, and scrutiny is value for money and it's taxpayers' money.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I'd like to...
have a point of order from Councillor Brydesdale. Please, Councillor Brydesdale, please speak.
I think it's disgraceful on International Women's Day for a man to tell a female councillor to get down.
Right. I'll remind members that is not a point of order, Councillor Brydesdale, okay? And I will expect everybody within the council chamber to show each other respect. However, I do also expect councillors to address the subject in hand, and the subject in hand is the budget. So please, Councillor Beer, can you stick to the budget? Please. Councillor Rennie, point of order?
The Code of Conduct is very clear about the councillors should treat others with respect. Clearly, by that comment, that is not respect to another councillor. So please, can I ask you overruling, even though it's partly, it is disrespectful to disrespect another councillor. It's very clear in the Code of Conduct.
Can you clarify which comment was not?
And basically, telling someone to shut up and sit down is not really very nice. It is not respectful, and it's, if anybody in this chamber was to tell anyone to sit down, that would be your role as the chair of this meeting, not a member of this of this council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rennie. I have chastised Councillor Lugger once on this matter and said that that is inappropriate. And Councillor Lugger, I have taken it that you will take that advice and will refrain from it further.
If it makes you feel better, Councillor Beer, I apologise.
Lord Mayor, that is seriously disrespectful to you. That is disrespectful to the chair of this meeting.
Councillors, we will now continue with the discussion, and the floor is open to Mrs. Beer. Please, Mrs. Beer, stick to the budget, and we will proceed.
Councillor Mrs. Beer, Lord Mayor. We've talked this afternoon about obviously value for money with delivering meetings, etc. And there was talk about the planning meeting. And that's why I referred to scrutiny, because that is covered by administration, our councillors' times, and attending those meetings. Like I said when I stood up, I do have some great sympathy for the Labour administration picking up the budget from last year, which was not a very good budget at all. We've had some very expensive clear-ups in our city that's had an impact on the budget, and that was caused by the previous Conservative administration, such as the trees fiasco in Armada Way, in which the whole of Plymouth was completely embarrassed. A second example would be bus shelters, to name but the two. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beer. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I would like to pay tribute to all those who work in health and adult social care in this city. Their sterling work positively advantages all of us and our families. Also, I must add to Mary's thanks to the officers of the Council who have managed the largest budget element in the City Council this year incredibly well, despite increasing demands, and have reduced waiting times for hospital discharges and domiciliary care. However, I note that further to Councillor Evans' complaint about the level of the revenue support grant, social care has received an increasing amount of grants from the government in this area this year. 25.833 million and a further 2.675 million in the social care grant against the previous year, and 5.618 million in the adult social care market sustainability grant. This is to improve waiting times for domiciliary and hospital discharges and help workforce pressures. So the RSG, the Revenue Support Grant, does not tell the whole story of the government support in this area and many others of revenue and capital budgets. Finally, on a different project, I would again like to record my thanks to the restoration of the bus services 30 and 31 which go through Peveril Ward. I thank Councillor Coker for arranging this, but of course note that the money did come from a rather large government grant for this purpose. But I'm sure all our residents who use that service, mainly in Compton and Peveril wards, will be very grateful to Councillor Coker and to the government. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mahoney. Councillor Finn.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. At a bit of a loss, really, after all the public adoration here of all this wonderful money being spent in all these respective budgets, when you don't understand the concept of where the money's coming in. Councillor Evans has clearly stated to us that the core funding has fallen, was it to 11.6 million? So therefore, on the basis of £11.6 million, they're spending an awful lot of money in the relevant departments without actually understanding where it's coming from. So let me just correct the other side to where the money is coming from. The revenue support grant is currently had a 30% increase since 2015-16 and is now £255 million, not £11.6 million.
Point of order.
And that is from the source, is the Department of Levelling Up and Community policy paper dated the 6th of February 23. So how can you possibly budget when you have no idea where your funding is coming from? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I'm sorry, with all due respect, Councillor Finn is accusing the Section 151 officer of not knowing what he's talking about, because the amount of money we get in revenue support grant is described in the budget papers. It's not 256 million, that's absurd. That's more than the total net budget of the council. So that wouldn't be right, would it? No, Lord Mayor, I think I'd like you to ask him, please, to withdraw those remarks and correct the record. Because accusing one of our officers of basically misleading the council, I think, again, is another breach of the code of conduct.
Just a point of order there, please. We're talking about Councillor Evans has categorically told this chamber this afternoon, we're not talking about the Section 151 officer, that it was 11.5 million our core funding is reduced to. It is on that basis that the question was made, not on questioning the 151 officer.
Councillor Finn, may I ask you to recheck your papers and your figures, and we will give you an opportunity to speak in a minute. Please, can you just check with that? And we have the 151 officer at the back there, if you so wish to consult. Thank you. Right, moving on, we now have the next one is Councillor Riley. Go on.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It was really good that you didn't get told to shut up and sit down then, Councillor Finn. I'd just like to comment on Children's Services as chair of that scrutiny committee, and I'd also like to thank Councillor Lugger for saying that it was chaired well. And off the back of that, I hope you appreciate that as a committee, we asked all the right questions and we did scrutinise in a very deep way. And as chair of that committee, I am really happy for the investment. So thank you, Councillor Lowry. Speaking of attitudes towards women, I'd like to talk a little bit about VORG over the last 12 months. To acknowledge the work around VORG Commission, which is working at speed due to Councillor Hayden and our dedicated officers. With all due respect, I would like to say, if we open up talks about what the current government has done for us in this space, and I mean in this area for survivors of domestic abuse and sexual violence, with children who are now recognised as survivors.
Councillor, can I ask you please to stick to the subject? If I'm going to pick up other councillors, I'm going to pick yourself up. Stick to the budget, please.
Sorry, I do apologise.
Thank you. Okay, we move on now then to Councillor Krasniak.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I will be supporting this budget simply on a principle that I have seen with my own eyes the hard work that people working on that budget have put in. I would like to start with a little story from the Book of Mormon. There is a prophet that has 4 sons, 2 older ones that are very accustomed to a rich environment, and the other 2 that are very hands-on in the business. And they were commanded to leave Jerusalem to go to Promised Land, and they ended up on a big shore of a big sea. And Lehi, a father, was then asked by his son Nephi, where shall I go to find the oars? And I'm coming to the point, my Lord Mayor. Where shall I go to find the oars to build a ship? Well, this ship that we are talking about is this budget. Councillor Lowry has put months, and I mean absolutely months, in preparation of this budget, working closely with businesses, working closely with scrutiny committees, frontline people, working with a executive board of the council, and especially at the background, we have executives of the council chamber that are running affairs of the business of this council. Now, when I hear the comments from other side about things, how government has implemented so much and given so much to a people of this country, let me just point out a little check for them to remember. Since 2019 to 2023, government cannot account for 1 100 billion pounds of our money. 100 billion pounds. Second thing, according to latest reports, if the government continues with the funding of the council in the present shape, there is 127 councils on the brink of bankruptcy. So when I look at the council that we have and the work that went in preparation of this budget, I congratulate every single one of you, because I'm proud to stand and say big, big thank you to Councillor Bryersdale for his effort to bring improvements in Dunstan Woods using the monies from Section 106, which our local residents well pleased with, and a habitat that has been created, and also for the allotment in the PL9 area. Also, I would like to thank Councillor Coker for his effort and his team that has filled so many potholes in our Plymouth Dunstan ward. But also I would like to thank Councillor Hayden for the libraries and the support that we have in Plymouth. If you go to Plymouth Library, you will see a place where people enjoy to go to. And it is because of prudent, careful, considerate, and caring nature that this council, this leadership, and this council shows to people of Plymouth. And I recommend and commend you all. Thank you very much.
Councillor Noble.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'd just like to speak and we've heard a lot about the larger projects that are happening, and sometimes these take a while to come to fruition, but I just want to speak in thanks of the £1.6 million investment in the further development of Derriford Community Park. So this project is tying up and knitting together the bits of land around Forwarder Valley. It's lots of green development. It's not just an aspirational priority. It's developing the habitat, tree planting, wildflower meadows, and then enhancing those and the access to that for all the communities that live around. So in my ward there's Liam, Estover, Thornbury, Derriford, Palmerston Heights, Budshead Wards is a Taylor Road estate, and Austin Farm in Egg Buckland. Lots of new footpaths and cycleways like the Seaton Valley Path, knitting that all together, and the education facilities at Pool Farm. And in the last week, communities came together at the Magic of Seeds event, and Councillor Harrison was there as well. That was a really good event, bringing people from across the valley together. And yesterday I was at the community tree nursery helping replant some oak saplings. Brook Green School were there, and they were also doing some education work.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noble, but we are drifting now on every single one of these presentations away from the budget. Can I please stress to all of you, this is discussion around the budget, not about wonderful things all around the city that are very, very tenuously linked to the budget. Okay, otherwise we're going to be here till next week, or not, as the case may be.
If it wasn't for the...
Thank you very much, Councillor Noble.
If it wasn't for the money, we wouldn't have it, sorry. There we go.
Councillor Hume.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Evans and his team for the budget today. I just wish the community grant had been increased in this budget, and how it would help all the councillors who give opportunities to help their to help their charities and projects we all support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hume. Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm going to be very brief, but I wanted to bring some stories from my surgery to thank the Cabinet members for the hard work that they've done with this budget and the money that we'll be spending on residents next year, because that's what the budget is about. It's not about high politics or which party hates which party the most, or which MP spends more of his time in other constituencies than where he should be, in my ward and other parts of that. It's about people. And I meet people in the surgery, and so I'd like to just very briefly, if I may, share a couple of comments. Gentleman came in just last week specifically to thank me for repairs to a pothole that he'd reported in Lee Park Walk round the back of Asda. Came specifically to see me to say thank you for spending that time and that money implicitly. We are in Estover Library now hosting a community living room, a warm space where you can come and sit on a sofa, get a cup of tea and a biscuit. Thank you very much, Councillor Hayden, for the immense amount of effort that you've put into making the libraries really important part of what you do and your daily work. It's
Councillor, can I ask you, is this a 24-25 budget? It seems not to be. So we are talking about and discussing here and commenting upon only the 24-25 budget, not things that have gone in the past. Please,
I am speaking
please.
about the future of the spending and saying why it's so important to residents to spend this money. Sorry, Councillor Evans, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Councillor Evans.
Councillor Gilmore was talking about a project which is being extended in this budget. So I don't understand, forgive me, Lord Mayor, and I know it's not my place to question your ruling, but the point is she was talking about something that will be continuing in this budget. Sudan just announced it. I don't understand why she cannot now refer to it.
Councillor Evans, very good observation, but I did ask a question of the councillor, and I did ask everybody to stick to subject, which is the 24-25 budget. So I was asking the question as to whether it is the 24-25 budget.
Yeah, with respect, I am condoning the spending of the money in the future based on the fact that my residents are coming, making the journey to see me in surgery, to tell me these things. So I'll make one last point with your indulgence and then I will sit down. The bus stop that's been replaced at Wasdale Gardens is my last thing. I know that Councillor Coker and Councillor Sproston here are planning to spend a lot more time and council tax money on these bus stops, and they are so desperately needed, and people come and are thankful for them. So I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'll try to stick to the budget. And I would like to begin by thanking Councillor Lowry, Mr Northey and the team that has worked to produce the budget before us today, together with all councillors and officers who've played their part in the budget setting process. It would be remiss of me to speak today without talking about homelessness. During budget scrutiny for both 2022-23 and 23-24, questions were raised about the under-provision for the true costs of meeting homelessness demand. We were assured by the Conservatives that both budgets were appropriate. During both years, the budgets were overspent from April the 1st. This isn't a sustainable position. I'd like to thank Councillor Lowry for right-sizing the budget for next year and allocating an additional £3.3 million to supporting homeless people here in Plymouth. I'm proud that during this year, the Labour administration has increased prevention of homelessness and stabilised our bed and breakfast numbers despite growing demand. We've also begun the process of increasing the provision of temporary accommodation by working with our partners both from our capital programme and securing external investment. Executive decisions with regard to £8 million are being published today, part of a total of about £20 million allocated by this Labour administration that was not in the Conservative budget we inherited. Lord Mayor, both you and I know that to tackle homelessness we need more housing. I'm pleased that next week Cabinet will be approving Labour's 4th iteration of our award-winning plan for homes. The plan is ambitious and the most holistic we have had. I'd like to thank members of the Housing Task Force, jointly chaired by the Chief Executive and myself, for bringing vigour to the development process and their commitment to seeing through the implementation. To support this, we not only have secured resources within the budget, we're also seeking additional funding, for example from the Brownfields Release Fund, and for additional funding to meet the growing demands on disabled facilities grants, through which this year we've completed an adaptation every single working day. Next year, we'll see the completion of the North Prospect regeneration, see new residents moving into Broadland Gardens and Stirling House, and we'll be bringing more schemes forward, all enabled by the budget before us. I'm pleased that this year within our corporate estate, amongst other things, we've maintained access to Pebble Beach on the Hoe at a point when we thought we were going to have to close it, repaired the coast path at Mountbatten, restored the outside of the Guildhall, and commissioned the reprovisioning of the St Budo Loos. Next year, we'll be reopening access to Jenny Cliff Beach, refurbishing the Guildhall, repairing the pool at Devil's Point, doing essential works to this building, and developing our public toilet strategy, to name but a few. We know that we want the city to grow. That isn't only dependent on our corporate estate meeting its obligations, but as the economy needs to work too. And we want our residents to benefit from this growth. I'm pleased that the inclusive growth agenda is a key component of the new economic strategy, also being approved by Cabinet next week. And as part of this, we'll be publishing our new cooperative development strategy on International Cooperative Day on the 6th of July. We'll be reviewing the Plymouth Charter to ensure that it's fit for purpose. We will be driving social value and local and SME spend and encouraging others to do the same. Lord Mayor, as though this isn't enough, the budget is allowing us to do more. Next year, we'll be substantially updating our welcoming city approach, heralded in our new public sector equalities objectives that Cabinet will be approving next week. And I do invite Mr. Gove to come down and see our discredited programmes and vast staff numbers. There aren't any in terms of staff numbers, vast, doing this, and there are no discredited programmes. And we're dovetailing that work with the work currently being undertaken by Destination Plymouth to make sure that we tie a whole story together about our city. We will also be continuing to tackle the cost of living crisis, and in June, Cabinet will be agreeing Building Bridges to Opportunity, this Labour administration's approach to tackling poverty. Though I note that the Conservative government, this last budget, after much cross-party pressure, has decided to only finance the Household Support Fund until October, making local councils work across the whole country harder as we go into next winter. So much for all of that. Aren't we wonderful Conservative government? Not when it comes to next winter, by the looks of it. Lord Mayor, this is a Labour budget that Plymouth can be proud of and which I fully support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Penberthy. Councillor Finn.
Yes, after discussions with the Section 151 officers.
Mayor, point of order. Councillor Finn has already spoken on one occasion.
Members, Councillor Finn has already spoken. However, there was an error in his figures, and I've allowed him to clarify that so he can put his point over.
Lord Mayor,
So this is
Lord Mayor, it's a point of order, please. Isn't it the responsibility? Isn't it responsibility for individual councillor to get the facts right before they come in front of us? So surely, if a person, the rules state very simply in this agenda, we have one chance to speak at this meeting. Please, it is not your responsibility.
The problem was they were right.
There's been rebukes across the chamber about sitting down. Councillor Rennie has just ordered somebody to sit down.
Members, please wait for a minute while I seek a little bit of guidance, okay, and I will be with you very shortly. Right, members, I've deliberated the issue here, and in my view, whilst erroneous at the time, I do not believe at this present day time that Councillor Finn will bring anything new to the fore that we have here, nor contribute further to the discussions with regards constructively to the budget. Okay, so Councillor Finn has spoken, okay, and that is the end. Are there any other councillors who have not spoken who wish to address the budget? Where's he gone? Councillor Coker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Obviously, I rise to support this budget. What I would like to say is we went to the election last year with a manifesto pledge for roads to improve our roads. This budget this year, unlike many other authorities up and down the country who are making cuts to their highways budget, our budget actually protects our road investment. So I'm really pleased to be able to say that we will be able to continue with the velocity machine, but also bring in new innovation for next year. I would also like to say, I would like to think, well, in fact, I know we are. We are a listening council. I want to tell members that from the next financial year, I promised at scrutiny to reintroduce the Living Streets budget that was cut last year. This is going to be, I cannot announce today how much you will get. It is being worked on, but I can guarantee you, you will not be getting any less than when it was stopped. So we have, as a Labour administration, listened to councillors, and I am proud that we're acting on that, and it's funded within the budget. What I'd also like to do is say that we are working with my bus champion really hard, and the money is protected for our bus budget, for our concessionary fares for next year. What I will say is the introduction of these new bus services, yes, it did come from central government money, and I admit that's fine. But what I've got to point out to the former administration, under your bus service improvement plan, your own government gave you zero money. When we took over last May, I brought the Department for Transport's bus team into Plymouth to explain our ambitions and our goals. And yes, we were rewarded with some money. So that was down to our work. Just remember, before you thank your own government, you got zero on your bid, and I voted at scrutiny against your bid because it was weak, it wasn't innovative, and it did nothing new. So I accept your congratulations for getting it, but you didn't get it on your own minute. I got it. What I'd also like to say is I'd like to pay tribute to Councillor John Stevens. One of the things that we learnt from talking to people was that our promotion, our Safer School Streets programme, our bikeability programme, training young people to make choices, to learn how to use a bike or walk to school. That's our future. This budget, we're committing to do more of that so that we can educate the young, because in the future, they will be leading by example. And I'm really proud, and I acknowledge the work that both Councillor Stevens has done and Councillor Sproston on public transport. This administration is committed to do everything that we can, and we've protected the money in our budget for our net zero action plan to deliver for Plymouth. It's been sadly lacking in the past. We have a drive and a determination to succeed where you failed. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coker. Councillor Wakeham.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, Councillor Coker, I would remind you that it was Councillor Dreen that actually started the pothole velocity machine in this city, and that was in our budget. Yes, it was. Councillor Dreen brought it in when he was in office last year. So you're incorrect there. Now, Councillor Briarsdale, I've got to thank you, by the way, for the good work that you're continuing, which obviously we budgeted for, such as the Habitat banking vehicle. And you've done an excellent job there, and I've got to congratulate you. Also, in your budget, you've allowed for 3,000 more trees, but not forgetting, in my year, we planted nearly treble that to add to the community forest. So, you know, so we've done some excellent work as well. And I'm glad, can I just ask if I can carry on, please, without interruptions? And can I just add that, Councillor Briarsdale, yes, you've done an excellent job, but you're carrying on the good works, not just from me, but from Councillor Bridgman as well.
And can we stick to the budget, please, Bill?
Yes, okay. Nobody has been greener on the budget than I am. So please, you know, I'm quite happy that you're doing what you're doing, but don't try and take all the praise for it, because we started this under our budget. Right, okay. I don't want to go on for too long, but I do want to thank David Northey and his team for the excellent work that they've done on this budget. And okay, if anybody else wants to take praise on the opposition benches, then fine. But I do think our council officers have done a tremendous job, and I want to thank them for that. Now, it is disappointing that we didn't hear the airport mentioned in this budget, because this is a crucial part of our future. It's for our future generations, and we know that we're going to have a lot of new green investment coming, green technology, etc., with different forms of powering aircraft, and I think we need to look at that. And I would remind our friends on the opposition benches that we must keep this going. Okay, but it's all to do with budget, Councillor Rennie. It's about budget, and it should have been included. It should have been included in this budget. Thank you. You will have time to speak, no doubt, later on, or you can talk to me afterwards.
Please. It basically, Councillor has obviously got incorrect information.
Councillor Rennie, yes, I take your...
Right,
okay,
thank you,
sticking
my Lord
to the
Mayor.
budget,
I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wakeham. Right. Members, I now hand over to Councillor Lowry. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I'm not used to people being nice to me. It's a very strange experience. I wonder if I can persuade people in the household back home to carry on what I've seen today. With your indulgence, I'll take you back to 2019. Councillor Mrs. Beer was the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, and we went to budget scrutiny, and I asked her the question, how much was your budget? And we came to an agreement as to what that figure was, and it was 45 million. And the reason I raised that is today's figure that you have before you is 74.5 million. So that's a 40% increase in 5 years. Now, if you look at adult social care budget, 5 years ago the budget was 75 million pounds. Today, here, it's 109 million pounds, a 31% increase. And behind those numbers is a story of children, vulnerable adults, elderly adults, all requiring the care and the support of Plymouth City Council. But if you were to add those two figures together, you get to 73%. 73% of the budget we're talking about today is being spent on adults and children. Okay? If you add the debt to all the expenditure we've undertaken in the previous years, along with our capital programme going forward, you add somewhere between 10 and 12%, depending on the current interest rates. So you're talking in excess of 85% of our budget is gone on adults, children's, homelessness, SEND, and our debt. That leaves 15% for the hundreds of other services we talk about in this council chamber every day of the week. And it's important to understand that, Lord Mayor. Sadly, the figures that I've given you with respect to Plymouth aren't unique. Councils across the country are all experiencing the same situation. You've heard about bankruptcies and 114s, and let's be honest, this is not a sustainable business model. If those figures going forward carry on in the same manner they have now, we will all be in a situation, regardless of how good the council will be, we'll all be struggling to meet the demands of the services that are put before us. So how do we get here? £700 million, that's how we got here. 14 years, 700 million pounds of RSG has been removed. That's the truth. You can add it up yourself, it's all in the figures there for you to see. Yes, we've had some money here and money there, but you talked about some money coming in the other day. They took 2.4 away the next day. So, so you need to understand that. So let's be clear. The budget announced on Wednesday reduced this council's potential budget going forward by a further 1.8% every year for the next 5 years. So you're not going to get no help from the Tories, trust me. They're going to make it worse. And we are going to have to find the money to provide those public services. Thankfully, we did some very proactive things years ago. We built some houses, we built business parks, we created an asset investment fund. We did an interest rate credit swap, which I'm very proud of, at 0.56%. 0.56% for our debt. Who wants that today? Because I'll take it over and over again. And I'm very proud of the work we did on the pension fund, despite what others may choose to say about that issue. So with respect to this budget again, an extra 7 million for children's services, 2.4 million for extra social workers, 2.1 million for children in special educational need, an extra 5 million for adult social care, an extra 5.4 million for the living wage, and an extra 3.3 million pound for the homelessness issue we discussed today. In total, 25.2 million pounds of extra work, extra monies going into those vital services. And the reason we've done that is because I'm fed up of year in, year out, of all the legacy savings and all the debt we're carrying from the previous projects. Let's clear the decks, let's find out where we are, let's find out what we need to deliver the service and get on and do it and give the staff the support they need. And I hope today, by voting for this, we do exactly that. Included within the budget, you mentioned reserves, okay? We have not depleted the reserves. There are 39 million in the usable reserves. What you're referring to is the working balances. And yes, they're not adequate and need to be higher. But how can you do that when you're losing money every year? Finally, yes, I'd like to briefly return to the capital programme. I can't do that because I've got insufficient time. So what I would like to do is pass on our thanks collectively for David and his team and the work that they've done along with Tracy and the many officers, because we have got a very good budget here that starts from ground zero, builds in the cost base we need to deliver public services, and we can go forward positively as a council and do what we need to do and hold our head up. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Leader, over to yourself.
We've had it again today, publicly critical of the pension issue. Where was your criticism, Councillor Lugger, when you were chair of the Audit and Governance Committee? The same committee that reviewed all the external audit reports on this matter. You were in a perfect position at that time to request an external review.
Point of order. Is it not a legal point that we are pending an investigation, and that sort of deliberation is going to prejudice such an investigation?
The Councillor Lugger, to date, it has not been classified as a legal investigation. It is just an investigation. So unfortunately, I must ask you to withdraw that. And Leader, please continue.
The same committee that reviewed all the external auditor reports on this matter. You had the chance to work with your ministerial ally, but you didn't. You were in power for 2 years and you did nothing. So what is it about saving £9 million of public money that you don't like? You and your Cornish MP ally...
Point of order, Lord Mayor. That goes against the investigation report and is misleading to the council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Finn, for your observation. However, it's to be disregarded here. Thank you.
Stop trying to make political gain over an issue that has already been aired numerous times through a committee that you chaired and have been part of the council scrutiny process. You and your Cornish MP colleague would be well advised. Take your own advice and not prejudge the outcome of the investigation, which you already have done. I'm sure it's in leaflets that are going around Plymouth at the moment. No wonder you want to distract when this Tory government has now raised us to the highest tax burden in 70 years. Prices are still rising in our shops. And people have come off fixed-rate mortgages to be faced with the Tory mortgage premium. The fact is that the Levelling Up Secretary have told every house in the country he's coming for their council tax. He gives with one hand, he goes with the other. But most insultingly of all, people know that the only cause that gets the Tories out of bed is trying to save their own skin. Billions of pounds of public money being wasted. 7 billion by the Prime Minister on COVID fraud alone. And let's not talk about the Rwanda scheme, 500 million and counting. And HS2, this disastrous project that the Tories have stopped now before it even gets to London. I mean, it's a white elephant without a trunk. The point is, how dare you come and claim, how dare you speak of wasting public money, how dare you speak of seeking value for money when you'll be out canvassing for a Tory government who want another 5 years of milking the public purse. If you had ideas today, by the way, and I include Councillor Hume in this, if you wanted these changes, if you didn't like it, where was your amendment today? I know where. You want to get off quickly so you can meet James Cleverly. Exactly. All right? Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about that. If you get to see him, if you get to see James Cleverly today, ask him this. If he's worried about small boats, ask him about the Plymouth fishermen who have been strangled in Plymouth by the fact that they've got an app they can't use, they are banned from catching fish, and they've got to take fitness tests. If you want to talk about small boats, talk about those. The fact of the matter is, in London and in Plymouth, the Conservatives have run out of ideas. Don't let them back in. Vote Labour on May the 2nd.
Councillors, I now call you to the vote. Green to approve, amber to abstain, and red for no. Members, as 32 for, 15 abstentions and 1 against.
Lord Mayor, my button agreeing the budget didn't work. I was pressing it, but it didn't record.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rainsford. We'll take that as a vote for then. Okay. Team, you recorded? Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, 30, 47, 48 total votes. Three, Holloway. Is that accurate?
Total vote.
Yep. Hang on. Done. Goes to Smith. Right, members, on studying the screen up there, whilst yes, it does say total number of votes 57, but if you count the votes that have actually been cast, excluding Councillors Rainford, it is correct. Except for the total votes of it. Yep, that's total potential votes. Thank you very much for pointing that out, Councillor Evans. We'll remember that for the future. Right, members, thank you very much. That concludes today's full council. Travel home safely. Thank you.